Bella used to spend 2 months every summer with her grandparents. They lived in a tiny cottage beside a dark, dense forest. Bella was a cheerful, friendly girl and was very popular even in her grandparents' village. One summer day, the little girl's friends called on her to accompany them. They were going to the meadow to collect mushrooms. "Granny, Granddad," cried Bella, "may I go out to play? I'll bring you lots of mushrooms, I promise." "Run along then," the old couple said. "But please don't go near the forest, or the wolves and bears will get you." Off skipped the girls towards the meadow at the edge of the forest. Bella was aware that the best and biggest mushrooms grew beneath the trees and bushes in the forest. Almost without noticing, she wandered out of sight of her friends. She moved from tree to tree, from bush to bush, filling her basket with mushrooms, browns and whites, reds and yellows. All the while, she was going deeper and deeper into the forest. Suddenly, she looked up and realized she was lost. "Hello!" she called. There was no reply. "Is anybody there?" she yelled a little louder this time. Again, there was complete silence. But somebody had heard her. There was a rustling and a cracking sound from the trees, and out stepped a big brown bear. When he set his eyes on the little girl, he threw up his arms in joy. "Aha!" he cried. "You will make a fine servant for me, my pretty one." Holding the frightened Bella roughly by the arm, he dragged her to his cottage in the depth of the dark wood. Once inside, he growled at her. "Now stoke the fire, cook some porridge, and make my home clean and tidy." The happy-go-lucky and carefree Bella spent miserable days in the bear's cottage. Day after day she toiled from dawn to dusk, afraid that the bear would eat her. All the while, she made plans of how she could escape. Finally, an idea came to her. "Mr. Bear," she said politely, "may I go home for a day to show my grandparents I'm alive and well?" "Certainly not," growled the bear. "You can never leave from here. If you have a message for them, I'll take it myself." That was just what Bella had planned. She baked some cherry cakes, piled them high upon a dish, and fetched a basket. Then she called the bear. "Mr. Bear, I'll put the cakes in this basket for you to carry home. Remember though, don't open the basket and don't touch the cakes. I'll be keeping an eye on you from the cottage roof." "All right, my pretty one," grumbled the bear. "I'll take a short nap before I go." As soon as the bear went to sleep, Bella quickly climbed onto the roof and made a lifelike figure out of a pole, her coat, and headscarf. Then she scrambled down, squeezed into the basket, and pulled the dish of cherry cakes over her head. When the bear awoke and saw the basket ready, he hoisted it onto his broad back and set off for the village. Through the trees he ambled with his load. The basket was a little heavy even for the big bear. Stopping by a tree stump, he sank down to rest. He decided to eat a cherry cake. But just as he was about to open the basket, he heard Bella's voice. "Don't sit there all day, and don't you touch those cakes." Glancing round, he could just see her figure on his roof. My, that child has sharp eyes," he muttered to himself. He got up and continued on his way. On and on he went, carrying the heavy load. Soon he came upon another tree stump. I'll just take a little rest and eat a cherry cake, he thought, puffing and panting with the weight. Once again, Bella's muffled voice was heard. Don't sit and don't you touch those cakes. Go straight to my village as I told you. He looked back but could no longer see his house. Well, I'm amazed, he exclaimed. Her eyes are sharp as a hawk's. So on he went. Through the trees he shuffled down into the valley, then up another hill until finally he emerged into a meadow. I must rest my poor feet, he sighed. And I'll just have one small cake to refresh me. She surely cannot see me now. But from out of nowhere came a distant voice. I can see you. I can see you. Don't you touch those cherry cakes. Go on, go on. The bear was puzzled, even scared. What big eyes she has, he growled, hurrying across the field. At last he arrived at the village, stopped at Bella's door and knocked loudly. Open the door, he cried gruffly. I have brought a gift from your granddaughter. The moment they heard a bear's voice, all the dogs of the village came running from the yards. Their barking startled him so much, he left the basket at the door and hurried out into the forest without as much as a backward glance. When Bella's grandparents opened the door, all they could see was the basket. There was no one in sight. Grandad gingerly lifted up the lid and stared into the basket. He could scarcely believe his eyes, for there, beneath the cherry cakes, sat their little girl, alive and well. Both Granny and Grandad danced with joy, hugging Bella and praising her cleverness. They heard the story of how she had tricked the bear again and again. Soon, all her friends heard the news and came running to meet her. Bella was so happy. In the meantime, deep in the forest, the old bear reached home, tired and hungry. He shouted to the figure on the roof to make him tea. Of course, it did not take him long to learn that the wise young girl had tricked him. What do you think the bear did then?